Man, so I'm always amazed by how sound and music can lift your videos to, I mean, not even the next level, but the top level. It really is mind-blowing. So today I'm gonna show you 3 very simple but very effective sound design techniques. What is that? Weird. I'm so glad that a lot of you noticed the sound design of my short film Whispers, because I put a lot of work into it and it felt really good when I finished it. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll put a link down below in the description. It's just 90 seconds long, so perfect to watch when you go to the bathroom. Huh. And now I realize that some of you might actually be in the bathroom right now, pooping. Wow, feels kinda weird knowing that some of you are watching me while pooping. How did we get here even? How did we go from sound design to pooping in like 10 seconds? What is this? Okay, so yeah, sound design. I'm not saying that it's more important than everything else, but it is super important. You know, I shot that short film with a budget camera and image quality is not perfect, but when you nail the sound design, it's like you almost forget everything that's not perfect about it. Sound design adds so much to a video. So I'm really glad that a lot of you noticed. Now, just because sound design is super important doesn't mean that it has to be complicated or difficult. The sound design of that short film was... I mean, there are a lot of audio tracks layered on top of each other, but it's not difficult or complicated. A lot of it is just asking yourself, what do I see and what should I hear? And then the key, of course, is to make it sound believable and natural and immersive. So here are 3 techniques that I use to pimp up my sound design. Tip number 1 is all about the continuity of the soundscape. Maybe you've already heard of L cuts and J cuts. It basically means that you extend the sound of one clip across to another clip. And what that does is, it smoothens out the cut and makes everything flow a little bit better. Now, how often you use this technique depends on the video you're working on. So, for example, a lot of times in movies, the audio of a scene or a shot precedes the visuals. A simple example. You see a shot of a beautiful landscape, and during that shot, you already hear a conversation starting. And then a few seconds later, you see the people having the conversation. And also in a conversation, they often use L cuts and J cuts. For example, a person is talking and then in between they show reaction shots of the other person. So using L cuts and J cuts just smoothens out everything. It makes everything flow. And of course, you can also do that in a very simple way with sound effects, like I did. In my short film, there's a shot of crows flying in front of the moon. I added a sound effect of crows making their cool sound, but it extends across to the next shot. And then it fades out. It just sounds more natural like that, and it flows. If you would cut the sound every time there's a visual cut, you know, like you see birds and you hear birds, cut, and then you see dogs and you hear dogs, cut, then your video will feel like that. It will feel choppy. You know what I mean? Now, of course, that doesn't mean that you should extend the audio of every single clip. It's a tool, a technique that you can use. But it has to make sense. But it is a very simple and very effective technique. Okay, and then tip number 2 is kind of an extension of tip number 1, and the easiest way to explain is again with an example from my short film. So at some point the little window at the base of the tree lights up and there's a humming sound when it lights up. Maybe watch and listen first. So when it lights up, there's that humming sound, right? And that humming sound extends over multiple clips whenever you see that little window. But depending on the shot, the volume is different. It's louder when it's a close-up of the little window, and it's lower when it's the over-the-shoulder shot, for example. And even when Joanna moves in front of the little window, the volume changes. It's a very simple technique, but it makes everything feel so much more immersive. It makes a huge difference. I think this is my favorite technique, for sure. And then the last technique is stacking sound effects. Very simple again. For example, the moment where Joanna gets sucked into the tree. I wanted something loud, and of course you can find a bunch of sound effects on Epidemic Sound, for example, that are suitable. But the problem is that just one of those sound effects sounds too empty. So what I did is I started with a bass, one sound effect, and I just added all kinds of different sound effects on top of that to create my own custom sound effect. For example, to emphasize the jump scare, I added a hit right at the start. I also added a scream. I added some body grab sounds to make it sound like a struggle. Some more whooshes. And then all of those combined created a nice full sound. And it's a simple technique, but this one takes time because you have to find and combine the right sound effects. Sometimes they just don't match and you have to look for something else. But if you get it right, then it's super effective. And that's it for today, guys. Sound design. I hope you learned something. If you're looking for sound effects or music, I use both Artlist and Epidemic Sound. Check out the links in the description. Both are great. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next one. I am getting old.